Hello and welcome, Exiles. Welcome to the final video for the Deadeye in-stack Kinetic Blast Totem build. I played this character to about 96. I was about to hit 97. Literally just farming Sanctum non-stop. I got to about 1500 int. This is mostly due to the fact my gear is more on the weaker end. Roughly, I would expect this character to probably be able to hit closer to 1800 to 2k int with like reasonable gear. Things that are weak, in my opinion, are things like my amulet is weak. Things like this ring is mostly just fixing my res because I had messed up gear earlier. My wand is basically a 2-stat wand with like a half roll of crit and then a bench scrap. Not very good there. Stronger items would probably be my shield's decent, my boots are decent, my body armor's decent, stuff like that. There are some things that are there at the end of, hey, this is decent gear. It's not OP, but it's decent. My belt's a 2-stat item, it's int plus res, and then I bench crafted something. Stuff like that. Point is, what I'm saying here is, the gear is not to the end I would normally like to take to build, but personally, I have a few problems with the build. First off, I want to hit the elephant in the room, which is, for me, nimis. Nimis, originally, I had bought nimis earlier on in the league. It was like, it went all the way down to 5 divines almost. I bought a good roll of 12 divines. I resold it at 12 divines. And then when I went to start this character, the nimis was at 20 divines. I was like, oh, okay, that's a little bit more than I want to spend, but you know what? I think this is going to be a cool character. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And nimis has just been going through the roof. It's 39 divines now. And quite frankly, even though the rest of my gear is mostly trash, the fact this ring is going through the roof, it's making this build really more expensive than the value it's getting out. So I want to address that first off. Part of the reason I am like hesitant about recommending this build right out the gate is nimis has gone through the roof, and the quality of the build isn't really worth that of, hey, one of your gear pieces is 40 divines. That's insane. If the build was a hell of a lot stronger, then I could say, yeah, it's okay, I spent 40 divines on one item, but that's one issue I'm having with the character. The other issues have to be with, basically, I can't see what the hell is going on. I wanted to do this character for Sanctum, maybe doing a no-hit run on it, but I quickly realized, turns out if you can't see anything, you're going to run into damage, and doing a no-hit run of this character is virtually impossible. I can do pretty consistently doing like the no recover resolve runs. I've done those like 4 or 5 times in a row now, but doing a no-hit run, there's no way I'd risk a no-hit relic on this because I've already done over 100 plus Sanctums and haven't dropped a no-hit relic. If I drop a no-hit relic, I am not going to risk it on this character. No way in hell. And then the other part of it is the damage is just kind of mediocre, and it's a totem build on top of all that. I don't really like totems. Totems isn't a playstyle for me. So these are some of my hesitations with the build. I'll walk you through basically what it looks like on a map at the end of this video and stuff like that, and you can make up your own mind. But personally, you know, I tried something out here with totems and Wilma's Requital. I think I might want to try Wilma's Requital maybe one more time. I have another idea for it. That won't be an instacker. It'll be a completely different approach. But ultimately, I couldn't really make it to work in a good way. You know, I'm missing things like I would much prefer a KB enchant than a Lightning Golem enchant. Frankly, I've forgotten to even summon my Lightning Golem for the vast majority of this character's gameplay. So I just got that enchant when I was getting the Uber out of this character, and it was only tangentially relevant to the character. Other things about the character are our recovery, our sustain method. I'm not really sure about how to get good sustain in a totem build. That's something I don't quite understand yet, other than having a character that has regen or sustain outside of something like leech and gain on hit, because most of our sustain is basically just don't get hit and then have the recharge proc. It's pretty rough. We're ailment immune, so ignites and stuff like that aren't bad, but if we get hit by a bleed and I forget to price my bleed flask, or if you just get ticked down through a few hits, it definitely adds up. For the most part, we didn't die too much on this character. We did have ghost shrouds. We did have 26 to 40k evasion, depending on if I have my jade flask on. So it didn't die a ton. Deaths are like 22. Granted, I only was doing Sanctum. It was a pretty safe, non-death oriented playstyle, so that's probably most of the reason we didn't die. I think if I took this to juiced, tanky, like dangerous content, I probably would die somewhat regularly, given my defensive layers are captive aid plus high ES. It's not really quite the defensive layers I would like to have. I really would like to have some level of maybe suppress in there with something like a Trickster's Defense, or something along the lines of some recovery that is consistent and strong versus the fact I'm just hoping that my totems kill the enemy before the enemy hits me, sort of thing. It's not really quite as comfortable as I would like defensive layers to be. Other things are the I don't know if this is working or not. Somebody was telling me in Twitch chat that having less AoE on the kinetic blast helps the basically the extra explosion kinetic blast does pack tighter. They were saying that should improve my DPS. I put this on. I don't know if it's really improving the DPS or not. I'm trying it out. I don't really know. This is something like if I really like the character, I would test more conk effect versus no conk effect and whether or not minimizing the AoE is actually a good thing on kinetic blast. That's something I can't really tell. This is just why I have this here in case you're wondering. If you look through my POV, why does he have conk effect? This is just something I was trying out. Whether or not it's something that's actually helping me do more damage, I don't really know. I'm just trying it out, you know? Okay, so that goes over some of my basically hesitancies about the build. Overall, the character's idea was pretty simple. We stack a bunch of int, then we get kinetic blast on a totem, we put the totem on the enemy, and Nimis makes the projectiles come back and hit the enemy. That part I think mostly worked decently, but in the end result, I have to say, having an in-stack relic, this in of itself is like a 70% more damage, and that plus a Nimis does not justify the level of power that this character has. Granted, I have quite a few important items that are relatively bad. My amulet's bad, my belt is bad, my wand is bad, and this ring is pretty bad. In my opinion, we have some weak gear slots. That being said, if you try to make this build without an in-stack relic, even if you make these slots really good, I don't know if you're going to outpower this one mod right here and how important it is to make it to the point where this setup I have for the build is actually a good setup. So that's part of my hesitation there. It clears Sanctums, it clears most content fine. I don't think it would do Ubers. I think it would extremely struggle at Ubers. Totems die way too fast. Frankly, they die on regular bosses a lot of times. Even on the totem boss in a toll, I've had them die just to the frost wave. And that's part of my own issue for maybe I should take some time and invest into things like Ironwood, or maybe I should consider going over to Primal Manifestation as a cluster. Stuff like that to give the totems some more HP, some more resistance, and stuff like that. Granted, that is affecting how fast these things die, but ultimately, I don't think that's necessarily going to solve the build. I think the build is still going to have the issues of it's covering my screen. I can't see anything, and it also doesn't deal like OP damage. If it dealt OP damage, I could deal with the fact I can't see a thing, but it doesn't really do that. So I showcased in the video what it looks like with the Heritage MTX. I'm going to showcase what it looks without an MTX because I think this is an important thing I should address as well. I think without the MTX, it kind of hurts my eyes. The bright flash of the pops from Kinetic Blast are, they're too bright in my opinion. They start to hurt to look at. And I want to say this because there's going to be people that might want to play the build that say they don't want to pay for the MTX or whatever. And I want to give this showcase just to show the bright flashes that occur with Kinetic Blast, the non-MTX version, that I think kind of hurts my eyes. And I would think other people would also have a similar issue with it. So I figured I should showcase that because, you know, maybe you still want to play the build just because you like, you know, creating a build that is screen clutter and it's interesting or whatever, and you still want to try it out. This is another thing I want you to consider in terms of me trying to talk you out of play the character. Generally, I have a pretty high standard for my build, so for some people this build still might be good enough and still might be worth the fun or whatever, but I always want to be open and honest with characters I make when I don't think they're up to snuff or they're up to par with what I would consider a good character. I try to be pretty strict with myself on that, so that way I avoid for the most part recommending builds that aren't good. So that's why I'm saying all this, more or less. I'll probably still end up finishing one more Sanctum run with it because I already started it and stuff, but I am going to be probably selling out of Nimis, selling out of this character's gear, because ultimately there's absolutely no way I'm doing a what you call it run with this. So this is what it looks like on a Minotaur. This is in a like ideal environment, closed arena, real close. The projectiles go out, they go in and they hit the boss. That stuff works. And even then, in an optimal scenario, you can make what you will. This Minotaur, I don't think it had tank mods. Maybe, yeah, I don't think it had tank mods. Make what you will of it, but that's not the level of DPS I would justify as worthwhile if you're starting the build cost out at 40 divines. That's the breaking point for me. If Nimis was 5 divines, I would probably be singing a different tune. I would say, hey, this is a cool build, play it, it's fun, it's interesting, you might get blinded a little bit, but you know, sometimes that's fun to do in PoE. That would probably be my message. But since Nimis is 40 divines, my message is pretty simple. It's not worth 40 divines. The build is not worth 40 divines. That's the rub. That's what I'm getting at. So I did enjoy playing this character. Towards the end here, I've gotten tired of being unable to see anything that's going on. It's novel and fun for about 2 days, but that was my limit, to the point where I was like, okay, I'm tired of not seeing absolutely anything. I want to see at least a little bit of what's going on, type of deal. So that's my conclusion video on the Deadeye. I'm sorry to those that were excited about this build, but I have to be honest, I don't think this is a build I'm going to recommend. I enjoyed it, but ultimately, costs too much. It is kind of blinding, and it has some weaknesses. Sustain, its DPS isn't OP. I think the DPS needs to be OP if you can't see a single thing on the screen. That's generally my rule of thumb for builds in PoE. You can justify not being able to see if you're erasing everything instantaneously. If you're not erasing things instantaneously, if there's a little bit of rub there, that fact that you can't see what's going on is going to get you killed, and it's going to be frustrating. So that is basically some of my, I guess, review of this build, and that's why I'm not making a full build guide. That being said, I said earlier in last video, I am making a full build guide on the Juggernaut, because that Juggernaut character is quite good in my opinion. And that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell this character's gear, I'm going to liquidate it, and then I'm going to put some more time into min-maxing that Juggernaut to a higher extent, because I really like that character. It was fulfilling all of my standards for this is a good character. So next video you can expect from me is probably going to be a finalized build guide on the Reap Impale Juggernaut. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care, and peace out. See you guys later.